Have you ever felt like people just don't take you seriously? Like no matter how you ask, how you explain, or how much sense you make, they just ignore you? What if I told you there's a darker side of psychology, hidden beneath the surface of everyday conversations, that could flip the power dynamic completely in your favor? A set of psychological hacks that could make anyone, and I mean anyone, start saying yes, start obeying, without even realizing they're being influenced. This isn't magic. This isn't manipulation in the Hollywood sense. It's real human psychology, raw, powerful, and deeply uncomfortable for most people to even talk about. But once you understand it, it's like being handed the master key to human behavior. And once you hold that key, you'll never be the same. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have learned 10 dark psychology hacks that people have used for centuries to gain power, influence minds, and control outcomes. Most of them are used on you every day. You just didn't know it. Until now. Let's begin with the first one. 1. The yes ladder. People love being consistent with themselves, even if it makes no logical sense. That's why, if you ask someone to agree to something small, they're much more likely to agree to something bigger right after. This is called the yes ladder. Let's say you want someone to help you with a time-consuming task. Instead of asking right away, you start with something easy. Hey, do you have a minute? They say yes. Can I ask you a quick question? Another yes. Would you mind helping me just for a second? Now they're already agreeing with you, step by step. Then you hit them with the real request. Their brain has already said yes 3 times. Saying no now feels like breaking the rhythm. This is how skilled influencers get people to volunteer, to confess, to buy, and even to follow orders they normally wouldn't. One small yes at a time. 2. The weapon of silence. Most people fear silence. They don't know how to sit with it. So when a conversation suddenly goes quiet, their brain panics and starts to search for relief. Any relief. That's where this hack comes in. Ask a question, preferably something bold. Then stop talking. Just look at them. Let the silence hang in the air. Don't rush in to fill the gap. Most people will feel the discomfort and start talking just to escape the pressure. And in that moment, they might reveal something they never intended to. Or they might just say yes to end the awkwardness. Silence, when used strategically, becomes a tool of pressure. It creates tension without aggression. And in that tension, people break. 3. Mirror, then lead. We are hardwired to trust people who seem familiar. People who act like us, sound like us, or move like us. So when you mirror someone's body language, tone of voice, and speaking pace, their subconscious registers you as safe, trustworthy, and even likable. But here's where it gets dark. Once you've mirrored them and built that unconscious trust, you change your tone, you slow your speech, you lean in, you look them directly in the eyes, and without realizing it, they start to follow your lead. You've synced your rhythm to theirs, and now they're syncing back to yours. This is a common tactic in hypnosis and high-stakes negotiation. It's invisible, it's subtle, but it works. 4. The illusion of choice. People don't like to be controlled. They don't want to be told what to do. But here's the trick. If you give them the illusion that they're in control, even when every option leads to what you want, they'll go along with it happily. For example, instead of saying, "Can you do this for me?" you say, "Do you want to do this now or later today?" Either answer gets you what you want, but they feel like they're choosing. This hack turns obedience into empowerment. It works on kids, on coworkers, on strangers, and on partners. Build a box of choices, but make sure you're the one who built the box. 5. Identity labeling. Everyone has a certain identity they cling to. Maybe they see themselves as generous, honest, reliable, strong, loyal. When you tap into that identity and tie it to a behavior you want from them, they feel an emotional obligation to comply. Try saying, "You've always been someone I could count on." Or, "You don't strike me as the kind of person who gives up easily." Even if they weren't planning to help, they'll feel the pull. Because now, saying no isn't just about the request, It's about contradicting the image they hold of themselves. And that's a battle the ego rarely wants to fight. 6. Scarcity equals obedience. Here's something people don't like to admit. They want what they think they can't have. Scarcity creates perceived value. So when something seems rare, urgent, or limited, we act quicker. We don't want to miss out. That fear of loss becomes a trigger. Tell someone, "I'm only offering this to a few people," or "This won't be available tomorrow," and their brain goes into chase mode. This applies to conversations, favors, offers, and even relationships. The more exclusive you make your requests seem, the more likely they are to comply just to avoid the feeling of missing out. Scarcity doesn't just raise value, it speeds up obedience. 7. Confuse, then command. When people are momentarily confused, their mental defenses drop. It's a moment of cognitive vulnerability, and that's where this dark trick sneaks in. Say something slightly strange, reverse your words, change topics suddenly. Get them thinking, "Wait, what?" Then, right after that brief confusion, give a clear, simple command. The brain, seeking clarity, latches onto your instruction. It doesn't always work on everyone, but when it does, it's like pressing the override button. Their confusion makes them follow without fully processing what they've agreed to. It's a psychological sleight of hand. And in the right moment, it's disturbingly effective. 8. Foot in the door technique. This one's a psychological classic, and still wildly effective. Get someone to do a tiny favor for you, not because you need it, but because it sets the stage. Once someone agrees to help, even with something meaningless, they begin to see themselves as the kind of person who helps. Then, when you come back with a bigger request, they're more likely to say yes, not because they want to, but because saying no would feel like breaking character. Their identity is already on the line. It's like placing a hook in their mind. You tug on it later, and they move. 9. Emotional anchoring. People don't remember exact words. They remember how you made them feel. So if you can generate a powerful emotional response, fear, guilt, excitement, even nostalgia, while making a request, they'll forever associate that feeling with you. This creates what's called emotional anchoring. It's what cult leaders use. It's what manipulative partners use. And it's what master persuaders use to build loyalty and obedience. If you can consistently trigger an emotional high or low around someone, their brain will unconsciously tie you to that feeling. And when people trust their feelings more than facts, which they often do, you become the source of emotional truth, and they obey that truth. 10. The invisible chain, gradual commitment. This one is the most dangerous and the most powerful. It doesn't ask for instant obedience. It slowly builds it, one tiny step at a time. You start by asking for something small, then a little more, then just one more thing. Over time, the requests grow, the demands increase, and by the time they realize what's happening, they've already committed too much to pull away. This is how cults gain followers, how abusive relationships gain control, and how con artists trap intelligent people. They don't demand obedience, they build it, one thread at a time, until it becomes a rope, then a chain. And by then, it's too late. Now take a moment and think. How many of these have been used on you before? How many times have you said yes and later wondered why? How many conversations have left you walking away, obeying something you never meant to agree to? And here's the more important question. What would you do with this power? Because understanding these dark psychology hacks doesn't just make you more persuasive, it makes you more aware. Aware of the hidden games being played around you. Aware of the levers that move people, emotionally, mentally, socially. But we're not done. Now that you know the 10 dark psychology hacks, it's time to look deeper. Because these aren't just tricks, they're tools. And like any tool, they can be used to build or to destroy. What really matters now is how these hacks are used in the real world. And more importantly, how to recognize when they're being used on you. Let's start with something that happens every day, but goes unnoticed by most people. You walk into a store. The salesperson doesn't ask you to buy anything. Instead, they offer you a free sample. Try this, it's on us. That's the foot in the door. You accept the small gift, and now a subtle pressure builds inside you. To be polite, to return the favor. Suddenly, you find yourself listening longer, nodding, agreeing, maybe even buying. You think it was your decision, but it wasn't. It was psychological groundwork laid before you even knew you were being influenced. And what about mirroring and leading? Ever notice how some people just make you feel instantly comfortable? Like they're on your wavelength? That's no accident. Skilled communicators, especially manipulators, study your tone, posture, rhythm. Then they reflect it back. Once you feel safe, they guide you. Not with force, not with logic, but with emotional rhythm. It's how toxic partners reel you in before changing who you are. It's how cult leaders break resistance without raising their voice. Let's talk about identity labeling. This one cuts deep. Imagine a boss who says, "You've always been a team player. I knew you'd step up for this." That sounds like a compliment. But what it really is a trap. They're shaping your identity to match their needs. If you say no, it's not just a rejection of the task, it's a rejection of who they say you are. That's how guilt is weaponized. It doesn't feel like manipulation, but it is. And it works. Because we don't want to betray our sense of self, especially when someone is flattering us. Then there's scarcity, which drives not just sales, but entire relationships. Have you ever been with someone who gave you attention only when they felt like it? Who made their affection feel rare, unpredictable, even conditional? That's psychological scarcity. And it creates obsession. It keeps you chasing, wondering, hoping. You don't see that you're being trained like a gambler at a slot machine. The unpredictability makes you addicted. And when they do show love, it feels 10 times more valuable. That's not romance. That's emotional control. Now let's go even deeper into the most dangerous of all, gradual commitment. Imagine someone asks for your help once. It's harmless. Then they ask again, and again. The requests get a little bigger each time. Maybe they ask you to lie for them. Maybe they get you to cut ties with someone. Maybe they isolate you, little by little. You don't even realize it's happening. You think it's your choice. But they've been shaping your behavior in micro steps, slow enough that you never question it. Until one day you wake up and realize you're doing things you never thought you would, saying things you never believed, living a life someone else designed for you. And by then, you don't know how to escape. These are not stories from fiction. These happen every single day. In homes, in schools, in relationships, in politics, in religion. People are obeying, surrendering, breaking, and they don't even realize why. But here's the truth. If you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, "Why did I agree to that?" you were probably under the influence of one of these hacks. Now ask yourself, have you ever used these, even unintentionally? Maybe you've used silence to pressure someone. Maybe you gave someone a choice that wasn't really a choice. Maybe you flattered someone's identity so they'd do what you wanted. If you've done any of that, don't beat yourself up. It's not about guilt, it's about awareness. These are instincts we all have. The only difference is, some people use them with intention, and those are the people who shape the world around them. So now that you see how these dark hacks work, what should you do with this knowledge? Here's where the emotional weight really lands. You can use these powers to control others, or you can use them to protect yourself. Because while some people are out there trying to manipulate, gaslight, and dominate, you can become the one person who sees the game, who recognizes the moves, who breaks the chain before it wraps around someone else's neck, or yours. Imagine being in a conversation and suddenly realizing, they're mirroring me right now, or they're giving me the illusion of choice, or they're triggering scarcity to pressure me. You don't have to panic. You don't have to run. All you need to do is pause, breathe, and choose, consciously, what you want to do next. Not what you're being told to do. That's real power. The power to see the strings without getting tangled in them. Now, if you're watching this video, there's a reason. Something inside you wants influence, wants confidence, wants to take back control in a world that constantly tries to take it from you. And that's okay. Power isn't evil, control isn't evil. But unconscious power? That's where the damage happens. That's where people get hurt. Relationships break. Trust gets shattered. So let's go back through the list, but this time, with awareness as your weapon. Yes, ladder. Be mindful of when you're being led, step by step. Just because you said yes before, doesn't mean you owe another yes. Weapon of silence. Recognize when silence is being used to pressure you. If it feels like someone's waiting you out, don't rush to fill the gap. Take your time. Mirroring and leading. Notice if someone seems too synced with you. Ask yourself if they're guiding the rhythm of the conversation. Illusion of choice. Look closely. Are you really choosing? Or are both options pointing in the same direction? Identity labeling. If someone is tying your worth to their request, pause. Your identity isn't a bargaining chip. Scarcity equals obedience. Minus scarcity doesn't always mean value. Sometimes it's just manipulation. If someone makes you feel like they'll disappear if you don't act now, ask why that urgency exists. Confuse, then command. Confusion is a tool. If something doesn't make sense, stop. Ask for clarity. Take back control. Foot in the door. If you've done something small, don't feel trapped into doing more. You're allowed to change your mind. Emotional anchoring. If someone always makes you feel guilty, scared, or euphoric right before asking something, pause. Emotions aren't facts. Gradual commitment. Look back. If you've slowly given more and more without questioning why, it's not too late to pull back. The truth is, everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to matter. And that's why these hacks work so well. They tap into what makes us human. Our need for connection, approval, meaning. But when someone uses that need against us, that's when obedience becomes a prison. But not for you, not anymore. Because now, you can see it. You know the tools. You know the moves. You know the signs. And that awareness makes you dangerous, in the best way. So what now? Use these hacks ethically. Use them to help others, not trap them. Use them to defend yourself, not control. Use them to build honest influence, not secret obedience. That's the difference between a manipulator and a master communicator. You can inspire people without lying. You can lead without forcing. You can influence without ever crossing the line into control. That's real power. And if you found this video eye-opening, let me tell you something important. There's even more. More tactics people use. More ways we're manipulated daily. More dark truths about human psychology that are hiding in plain sight. So if you want to go deeper, if you want to see the full map of how control works in conversations, love, leadership, and life, make sure you subscribe, turn on the bell, and stay tuned for what's coming next. Because the most dangerous thing in the world isn't power. It's power you don't see. And now, you see it.